guys? Welcome to the Hype Attack Podcast, where we weigh in on the latest in nerd and pop culture hype.
We're the fandom. We are the excited conversations we have with our friends about the nerdy things we all love and geek about. We are the Hype Attack.
I am the hype!
What's up, everybody? I'm Doug. I'm here, as usual, with Isaac, Rudy, and Jermaine.
Hi.
Yo, yo.
Greetings.
This week, probably the biggest announcement that I saw, and I think we talked about this, was Amazon acquired the rights to a whole bunch of MGM's movies and shows. Two of the big ones, as far as like the nerd world goes, is RoboCop and Stargate. They've talked about reboots for that. We're also going to get into, they announced Paramount announced a Galaxy Quest series, and a little teaser dropped for Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire, or something like that, I think was the name of it. So pretty good, fun nerd stuff. A lot of like reboots and remakes we're looking at. Before we get started, guys, you guys do some nerd shit this week?
Of course we did.
Always.
We're on brand.
Good.
I know that me and Jermaine separately, not together, although there's been some speculation about our relationship, that we saw Super Mario Brothers movie.
Oh, yeah.
When did you see it? I saw it like the day after it came out.
I watched it a week after it came out.
Next question. Who did you see it with?
Me and Kat.
I don't believe you. Did you like the movie?
Oh, yeah. I loved it pretty much from the minute it started. Like, it was just one of those movies where once they went into the Mushroom Kingdom, like, I just like that they just like dove into it, and the world didn't need to be explained. It was just what it is. Like, you know, they're like, oh, here, just eat this mushroom. Like,
It didn't need to be. It wasn't like a deep dive on any kind of social commentary.
Yeah.
It's Super Mario. He's a plumber. He gets thrown into the Mushroom Kingdom, has to do a thing, and that's as deep as it needs to get because it's just fun. It's like it definitely is for kids. I think kids are able to enjoy it. There's enough in there for the kids to have fun, and it's a quick hour and 30 minutes. It's fun for the kids. It's fun for the adults, and it's fun for the nerds. It's fun for the gamers that have played either the N64 game or any of the recent iterations or even like the original side-scrolling stuff. And there's even deep dive Easter eggs of like, you know, little hints on like the original conception thrown in there, you know.
and if you do go watch it, there's wasn't there 2 end credit?
Yeah,
scenes?
there's a mid and
Spoilers. Some of us haven't seen it yet, and I plan to very soon.
there's no spoilers about the credit. I wasn't going to say what the credits are about.
And it's good to know.
Oh, no, we were going to
Okay.
say, but I'm just saying, make sure you stay for the 2 end credit scenes.
Yeah, it was just
there's 2.
Waluigi coming back, and I'm kidding. No, but the only thing before we move on, the thing I did want to touch on was the internet was like when the first trailer of Super Mario Brothers came out, people were like, Chris Pratt wasn't Italian enough. Like, what? We're in the age of an era that you can't like go too hard on an accent if you aren't that.
But I haven't heard that one of my favorite actors that I like, John Leguizamo, like he threw some shade on the movie
Doug,
too.
what was that name again?
No, I'm not going to repeat it.
John Leguizamo? John Lululemon? John Lululemons?
Well, I think the anger towards
Sorry.
I think the anger towards Chris Pratt was because the guy that does Mario's voice for the games is alive and well and was capable of doing it. But I'm almost glad they didn't, because it's one thing to play a game and hear a woohoo and the few lines that Mario ever says in a game, but to hear it for 2 hours in a movie, I'd probably want to blow my brains
If the
out.
entire time you're like, I got to go, I save my brother. You're like, maybe don't do that, Chris Pratt. But everybody wanted it. But without any spoilers, they address it quickly and then they move on. And I think it was smart the way that they did it and the speed in which they did it. And it satisfied everybody.
That's cool. That's fun. And you brought up something interesting about Mario, is that the games never really did much explanations at all of anything. It was just like, here's the guys and the plumbers and there's Mario. I mean, like, as far as social commentary, I think what Mario Sunshine had you cleaning up pollution, which I like that game.
Yeah.
That was on the GameCube. But other than that, yeah, it's just you're going to go save the princess and you're going to smash the mushrooms.
Did you guys
and stuff like
ever see that like manga comic strip of like where the mushroom came from? Like it was an
No.
Yes.
it was
What?
it was an obscured reference to say how Mario can get these certain power ups. Like I'll have to find it for further episodes. But
Is it the midichlorian in his bloodstream?
We definitely need to post this on the Instagram because it's crazy.
The mushroom grew from the dead Mario. So every time you die or you fall down like a hole, you know how you used to get hit and it goes boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, and there's
so
a
when
whole
you die,
pit of dead Marios.
there's a picture of Mario with his back arched like he's grown up out of the ground, but it's a mushroom growing out of his back, and that's in the early days in like the manga, whatever you want to say. It's not canon now, but that was just an interesting thing to say that certain mushrooms grew from dead Marios.
Well, I'm thoroughly depressed.
Oh, I know what'll cheer you up. Boys, just like we rehearsed.
Just peaches, 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 peaches.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go see that movie sometime.
I have to go kill myself. Call 819 if you have any.
But also to add to the voice thing, I honestly feel that it was a choice that they made because you have Disney, Pixar, all these well-known studios. I feel like even with Sony now, with Spider-Man, Across the Spider-Verse and all that, I feel like they wanted to contend for like best animated movie and not just, be like a regular, cartoon movie, where it was too cartoon. Like they wanted to try to win awards and all that type of stuff.
Oh yeah, and the potential for spin-offs and sequels is infinite with this. That's cool.
So definitely go see it.
Speaking in the realm of video games, I just recently got the whole VR racing setup to play.
I saw you posting about that.
Yeah, Gran Turismo on the PS5 with the VR2 and the steering wheel and everything, and it's awesome. As being someone that's been a gamer since the original Mario on the NES and playing some of those racing games on the NES where, there's like 3 movements you can make, to now sitting at my chair with the steering wheel, with pedals. The steering wheel reacts to the driving, the VR, being able to look around. It's crazy. It's like the dream come true. And I think just gaming is going to get even better from this point. So that was my nerd action this week, was just as much of that as I could.
Rudy, did you nerd out this week? This weekend you were...
No, I was painfully stuck in the world of the mundane. Like I had to download Kindle books and try to keep my thumb on the pulse. But
the real world.
Yeah,
I would say that you nerded. Rudy, for those of you that don't know, is our editor, is our engineer. He's the guy running the board, and much credit and cheers to you. Cups up to Rudy, because man, what a magician! He's not just looks, guys.
Off and run. Fucking jerk.
Oh shit.
Okay. All right. We ready to talk about reboots and stuff?
Yeah. Oh, fucking reboots. Okay. Let's go.
Reboots.
So Amazon and their reboots and everything that they announced. Stargate, I only watched a little bit. I watched the movie and I watched a little bit of the shows. I know they did like 3 or 4, I think.
Yeah.
And
the movie's really good, by the way.
Yeah, the movie's good.
Definitely.
They had a couple series, but the one that they got me on was
Don't do it.
SGU, Stargate Universe on Sci-Fi. They
I'll never forgive them.
hurt me deep in my marrow.
what happened?
Bone deep.
It's a really good show, and they went how many seasons? Was it just?
It was only two
two
seasons, and they canceled it after. My boy Eli's still out there.
They canceled it at the most major cliffhanger part of any story that you've ever heard before.
Did they didn't finish it like in a comic book or a book or anything like
They
that?
did. They actually
did finish it in the...
But no, it needed to be in the fucking show, and it needed to be live, and it needed to be in living color.
It was the first...
Can we send a shame bell out to the universe to whoever made that decision?
I
Like I did,
watched
a preacher.
a few
Send the shame out.
scattered episodes
the
of
Sci-Fi
the other
channel,
series.
by the way.
You know, I watched a few SG ones and the other ones. What was it? Atlantis.
Mm-hmm.
I watched a few of those. You know, here and there. And then when SGU came out, Stargate Universe, I was like, this is the one I'm gonna like give my all to. And just because I said that out loud, the universe was saying no.
That one, God, correct me. I could be completely wrong, but that was a little bit more like I mean, it's all sci-fi. It's gates that travel to different worlds, but they were on a spaceship or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
so
was-
it's more
that was,
traditional
like,
universe.
hard.
Yeah,
The Stargate,
Hard sci-fi.
if I'm correct,
Turgid hi-fi.
wasn't the ship in Stargate universe the ship that kind of started it all, that kind of scattered the gates? If I'm mistaken, like all over the universe.
I don't recall the exact lore, but as I don't know if it started in our universe or whatever, but as this ship traveled, job was to see stargates in different regions so you could move from, one gate to the other. Like they actually had to be physically flown to the destination and put there so you could connect the gates.
Because the original concept of the Stargate is like basically you kind of like put in a combination in a code, and so like the original Stargate series was like, let's just see what happens. Then you go into like fucked up universe or a fucked up world.
Like it was like an alternate, like not reality, but it was a different
Planets.
world. Because when they went in, I guess the whole theory on the original one was, you know how we always have that sci-fi theory that say that aliens, built the pyramids and all that kind of stuff. So it was when they went into this other world, like it was like an ancient Egypt type world.
Yeah.
And then you go in there and you find out like, oh, it was just like our Egyptian pharaohs and all these, you have these people that worship these gods. But it was linked to that lore to say that, oh, this is how this happened and how they kind of got over here through this gate.
one thing I would love to see. I've been playing a lot of these kind of survival games, and I look at just the technology and how much it's improved with procedurally generated worlds. Stargate is prime for something like that. Just procedurally generated world. You go through the gate, you do the survival horror stuff, and you go through a gate and go to another world. Like there's so much potential. And I think they tried a Stargate MMO at some point or a similar, something like that. I don't think it lasted too long, but man, that would be great. Anyway, reboot wise,
Yeah.
Are you excited for the reboot? Do you think it needs it?
Well, I think based on Rudy and Jermaine's reaction, because I only remember watching the original Stargate series that was like the immediate spinoff off of that Kurt Russell and James Spader movie, which was cool. Sounds like you guys have blue balls about it and need full release.
They're gonna have to do something pretty impressive to bring me back in, like just out the gate, like trailer wise, or drop the story.
Yeah.
This is the storyline. Like they've burned me one too many times.
And I think the through line with all of that, was specifically with reboots and remakes, is how many remakes and reboots actually need to have happened.
Dun, dun, dun.
Because I know Amazon, like Doug said, it's acquired like over a dozen titles from, what was it, MGM, right? And among the top of them, as far as like sci-fi stuff, yeah, like you said, Stargate, and then RoboCop. And the really interesting thing with the RoboCop is that it's not a remake nor a reboot; it's a continuation, but
The sequel.
a sequel directly from the first RoboCop. So everything else after that, the cartoons, the shows, part 2 and 3, with and without Peter Weller, is all gone. Kind of like with the way Halloween did.
Really?
Yeah, Halloween. And didn't Terminator do that or something? I'm trying to think if there was another series that kind of ignored one of the ones they made and they went back to like a sequel.
Oh,
Ghostbusters?
Lord. I know what that sounds familiar.
The Terminator, when they
can't
brought
place it
back
right now.
Arnold, right? They ignored. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
And I thought that one was still like a continuation, but
Terminator has always been weird with time travel and this and this and that. But RoboCop. So my question immediately when I thought about this, because RoboCop was not kid friendly.
not at
It
all.
was gory. It was violent. The first two. The third one, they familyed it up because you could sell toys to
Yeah, it became Hollywood, like that Hollywood recipe.
Let me say this though, as far as like a hero's origin story, usually it's like a bullet or two, a little light stabbing here and there, as my wife likes to call it, or
Hey-o.
or with RoboCop, it's complete gore and violence, but it's the greatest way to show just how dangerous and deadly this world. And they do world build. We know we talk about it all the time, but as far as world building, like they do it, and they show you in that one particular scene of what RoboCop's origin story of just how fucking violent that city can be, or how violent those bad guys can be.
Oh yeah, Detroit is known for that though.
Yeah, so it better come back and retain that violence. It has to.
But
it has to.
Have you guys ever seen the unrated cut of RoboCop? Like the original one is already bad as it. Not
How
bad.
bad? Do they shoot his PP off?
The what?
Do they shoot his PP off?
They shoot everything off. But it's like it's just more bullets and just them just getting riddled, like the death of Peter Weller.
Yeah.
And then the dude in the office with the Ed 209, you know, when he was like,
Oh, that's part 2, isn't it?
no, it's the first one because the Ed 209 was in it's RoboCop 2 has the actual Kane robot, the one with the arm and like the triangle face.
Okay.
Ed
I'm gonna believe
209.
you.
Ed 209. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I could talk about this all day. But the Ed 209 was in the office, you know, when he was like, you have 10 seconds to comply, you know, and he's running around and he does a countdown. But that scene is just longer. They're just longer scenes. Like that's all it is. But you just see more blood capsules and all kind of things.
I thought that like the extended and unrated is just Kurtwood Smith is going just for like another minute.
That scene is just so
Are
money.
you gonna shoot me, scum?
So when I read about the RoboCop reboot, I immediately went to that question of just, is it going to be violent or not? And my first response was no. There's no way in today's world. But Amazon makes The Boys.
That's right.
And The Boys is
I love
probably
The
one of the
Boys.
most gory. I mean, it's
Episode 1. This ain't no normal superhero fucking show.
Oh, yeah.
Holy crap.
and
I mean, it's not too early for spoilers, right? Give a hint.
I mean, just the first episode of this last season, right? With the
No. That's too soon for spoilers. Episode 1 of the first season of how gory it is.
Oh, is that when you talking about
A-Train.
when? Yeah, A-Train running. Yeah, so I read the comic book. So when they announced Boys, I kind of knew that was coming. But again, it was that question. It's like, are they going to actually do it? Are they going to make this
Full
show,
gore.
especially Amazon Prime? Because at that, you know, they hadn't quite had a big hit at that point. Like I was curious, like where are they going to try to fit in this Stream Wars? So there's potential, but at the same time, RoboCop is also, again, it's a toy seller. Like it shouldn't be, but it can be, right? There's the potential to turn this into a character that everybody likes, but I don't know if they need to, and I hope they don't.
What? Because they kind of, that's the thing. They kind of pacified that franchise as the sequels went on and as the TV shows came about in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
You know, but I hope the CEO of Amazon's like, you know, no, more gore. Like, fuck yeah, The Boys. Like, watch that show just to get an idea of how fucking gory Amazon likes it. I mean, they do shit in that show, The Boys, where I go, I didn't even think of that. And I'm glad that I didn't. But I'm glad that I'm watching it. And I kind of hope RoboCop ventures down that road.
Yeah, I mean, I don't need every show to be super gory or anything like that, but it's cool when it's there. And it's cool when it fits. I mean, I feel like when RoboCop came out, there was, I mean, I was pretty young. I mean, when did the original one come out?
Look it up.
Yeah, someone look it up. Although I feel like there was like that moment in time when a lot of sci-fi was ultra violent and it was just that kind of fun thing because I guess maybe because it wasn't so mainstream, nerds kind of liked all that stuff. You got a date?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a thing of the 80s. 87.
87. So I was 5.
The 80s
So I probably didn't watch it.
the 80s loved gratuitous violence.
To answer your earlier question about a movie that came in and dropped in the middle of a franchise and wiped out the next 2 movies, Superman Returns with Brandon Routh.
Yeah, and that was some years after the last Superman.
Yeah, but that ignored Superman 3 and 4, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
So it's not unheard of what they're going to do with RoboCop, and it's kind of fun.
I also know RoboCop. When the movie was pitched and it was getting made, like it had a hard time getting like hype about it. You know, to say, "Oh yeah, we're gonna make this movie," because the name alone, RoboCop. I think it's a great name.
Yeah. Well, now.
But back in the day, they thought that title was so cheesy.
Yeah,
like
sometimes
it was
it's a
so
placeholder.
crap. Yeah, they were like RoboCop.
It's a working title. It's the same guy. I'm the same guy that does Gores more. Yeah. Did you see that off of the Netflix's How Did This Get Made?
Well, that
Or no, sorry, Movies That Made Us.
yeah,
How
the
Did This
movies
Get
that made
is
us.
something else.
But I read so much on RoboCop,
Yeah.
like it's
Little-
ridiculous. Like
A little quick aside, by the way, there are so many movies, even things that you don't see documentaries on, that like, dude, this movie almost didn't get made, and it's like part of the major pop culture lexicon.
Oh, yeah.
But still, like the question still holds, and nobody fucking answered it. Should there be remakes? Should there be reboots? I mean, I know it's not a hard yes or no. I know there's nuances, but go.
Well, for certain things like RoboCop, where this isn't necessarily a reboot, I think it's perfect. I think it's really the way that they should go as much as they can. I look at, Star Trek Picard obviously is not a reboot, but it is like, coming back to these characters.
Continuation.
It's a continuation, and if they're trying to. Because there are certain sci-fi, fantasy, any of these nerd movies that were made in the 80s when the special effects were horrendous, except like some of the practical stuff. But
I love
so
practical
there's always a desire to like, man, I wish I could re-see that movie for the first time in today's effects. So certain things like even RoboCop's goriness. I mean, I haven't watched that movie in a long time, but I just remember it being pretty gory. But our gore effects have gotten a lot better. You look at movies.
I would beg to differ sometimes. It's not necessarily the era or the technology that you have. It's the vision of the person who may be dark and need to be looked at. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You're
right. You're right. But even because God, you're gonna hate me. The name of the evil robot in RoboCop, the one you were just talking about,
the
Ed 209.
Ed 209. Like
I can't wait for us
the
to go
first
video with Doug dancing Miami.
Yeah, it is. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, the miniguns. Like
He immediately triggered me with that. I was like, oh, I know what he's talking about. Yes.
Its movement wasn't too bad. RoboCop 2, though, I think the villain, like it was a stop motion or something. Like it's, that whole era, those things stood out. So those are the things that's like, even if you don't do a reboot, maybe even like a Lucas special edition, like just re-release some of these movies with like just clean up some of the special. They did that. They did that with.
That's a exactly. I'm like, who's gonna say it?
But
they shame him.
No.
Come on.
He didn't.
Okay.
He didn't know better.
Why don't I get to elicit a shame button?
I'm gonna make a standalone button to put in the middle of the table so that everyone can have access to it.
I know these two don't watch
use it.
Star Trek as much, but
At all.
Rudy, you watch Star Trek,
Yes.
the classic, the original series. They re-released where they redid all the space visuals. Did you watch any of that?
No, because I wasn't too large of a fan of
The original stuff.
But
It's hard too. But
the reason they haven't like re-released the next generation in like HD 4K and stuff is because the effects from back then were so dated that it doesn't translate into 4K without having to just redo all those effects. And I'm like, I can redo them because I want that in 4K.
well, that's what they did with the original series. Was they redid, because a lot of it was the old model that they would just like zip across the camera like a black screen or whatever like that. And I'm not saying that that's bad, because I love that stuff. It's so cool, and I think I've had a chance to see some of those original models that they used. They did like a Star Trek tour a while back. One of the greatest Christmas presents my mom ever got me. Like total surprise. Anyway. They redid it all with special like modern day computer stuff. Like, but it they didn't make it look too crazy, and they promised like we're not going to have the Enterprise doing barrel rolls or anything like that. So and then some of the villain ships or like the floating green hand episode or whatever. Like they redid a lot of those space effects, and it's enough to make those shows a little bit easier to watch. And I'm not saying like Star Trek's a bad show to watch, but like sometimes those older effects really like it makes a show almost laughable to watch at when you see it and it cuts to something. It's like, oh my God, that's embarrassing. I can't believe I told someone to watch this.
You know what I would love?
Shit.
What I would love for them to do is for them to do that with the oh my God, I'm forgetting his name, the Batman, the old Batman. The
Adam West.
Jesus Christ. Yes, the Adam West Batman. I would have had a don't.
No,
Don't. I had a brain blank. Come on. I knew the name. I blanked out on it a little bit. I did not know it.
Adam West should be part of your lexicon.
It is. I did not know it. I just
permanent
had
part.
a little bit of a sticky brain.
Unforgettable part.
Come on. I get two,
Hold on,
two
it's one
buttons
second.
used. 2 buttons used. I had a moment of a hiccup.
Well, we've been itching to try out that one. So,
Anyway, what were
why
you going
I
to say about
drink.
Adam West?
so your original point was.
Yes.
Sorry to completely fucking
Continue.
derail you, but anyway.
Here's some tissue. Wipe your tears. A little fathom, a little sadness.
Holy shame, Batman.
What I wanted to say, like, it would be fun if they had like those kind of special effects in the Adam West Batman, but the joke doesn't really like go over now. After I got shamed twice.
But
That would actually be an interesting reboot. Can you imagine someone going to Warner Brothers and be like, I want to reboot Batman?
Okay.
Hold on. Adam West Batman.
No, but they
Batman 66.
They didn't. Although I doubt them doing that. Although I saw some studio did that with the trailer of the Batman with.
Oh, yeah, with Robert Pattinson.
Jesus,
Matt
I'm
Reeves.
blanking
Yeah,
really
no, that's
hard.
fine.
Yeah, but no, wasn't there a DC animated movie that had the Adam West Batman?
Yeah,
Yes,
and they did a
yes.
comic book. I
can't find it.
Comic book series too. Was the movie also called Batman 66 or something? Because I think that was the comic book name too. But I don't know. I think
Probably.
it'd be kind of interesting for someone to reboot that. But to answer your question about reboots and going on to maybe the next topic, Paramount announced a Galaxy Quest series. I loved that movie. It was such a good spoof. I mean, like
That's a classic.
we were talking earlier about maybe like one of the better examples of how to do a spoof because it wasn't just a spoof. It was a commentary on the thing. It was spoofing and like,
very meta.
yeah.
When you have like comedy that's like very meta within commenting on a pre-established franchise like Star Trek, and then you have like a really cool cast, including one Sigourney Weaver who was in some spacey stuff. It's
yeah,
like,
Alien.
dude, that's a fucking
Some
hit.
spacey stuff.
Alan Rickman,
Amazing.
Tim Allen, Sigourney Weaver. It's a fucking solid cast.
I mean, Galaxy Quest is maybe obscure enough that I don't know if we can mention it without, like, maybe we should explain it a little bit.
Go for it.
The story was in this world, there was a show that was similar to Star Trek. It was a blatant ripoff of Star Trek called Galaxy Quest. But these aliens on another planet were getting the TV signals and thought it was a real documentary, and they rebuilt the ship. They went to Earth and picked up all these actors
That were at a convention.
that were at like a Galaxy Quest convention, which is pretty much a Star Trek convention. I think they even like kind of made fun of something that actually happened with William Shatner, where people were asking Tim Allen's character was supposed to be the William Shatner of this,
Right.
Where people were asking like too many technical details, and it was like whatever, fucking nerds. So it's
He's talking about himself.
I was so sad. It was it's such a great movie, and it's a fun joke, and it's a fun play on things. So they did stuff where like they'd have to go fix something in part of the ship, and there was like random flamethrowers, and it'd be like, why is there fucking flamethrowers here? And it's like, oh, because it was in the show. It was in
minute,
like,
yeah.
this is a horrible writer or whatever like that. So
But
would that fit as a series, or do you think are they going to go somewhere completely different with it? Like, to me, it's to answer your question about reboots. I feel like comedies are harder to reboot because it's like the joke's still there. It still holds. I can watch this show and I enjoy it. And it makes me laugh.
Specifically, this movie, it wasn't like a world built movie, and I'm gonna overuse the shit out of the word, but it was a world. It was not a world building movie. It was the setup of the joke, and then hit the punchline, then the end, and then there's the credits. And you're right. I don't see how they could. And I'm not a writer, but I don't see how you can create a whole series based off of that, unless they took that concept and then did what like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air did with Bel-Air, which is turned it into from a multicam sitcom into a single camera drama. That would be fascinating. Then you have some story arc to go off of that shit.
Well, what if they went full meta and just made a fucking spoofy, campy Galaxy Quest where it's Galaxy Quest? It's not about the actors played in the series. It's about the characters. Like, it's an actual Star Trek, spoof.
So which would be interesting because it's coming from Paramount, who makes Star Trek. But does that need to exist considering we have the Orville, Seth MacFarlane's Star Trek,
Which
it started off as a Star Trek spoof, but now it's full on its own thing at this
I've
point.
only watched the first season of that, but it was really good.
Rick and Morty did that too, where it was like a spin-off or a take off of Back to the Future, and then it just became its own thing.
Yeah. Orville, it makes me sad to say it. Like, I was so excited for it and I started watching, but I think it's one of those things I fell asleep through a few episodes. Probably just, I work construction and electrical stuff. Like, so I have to be mindful about what I do as far as watching media, because if it slows down too much, like, there's a good chance I'm falling asleep.
I'm right there with you. And if I lose that thread, if I lose that oomph, then I put it aside and I go to something else.
Yeah, I have a handful of shows I haven't finished yet.
And I think that's the thing is Orville, Seth MacFarlane is such a Star Trek fan. I think he was really trying to recreate that TNG old Star Trek feel, which were very much like an hour of them trying to figure out some problem, and they would slow down. And I think that was just the thing. But I've heard, like, especially once I think Hulu picked it up because Fox canceled it. I heard that last season that was on
Seth MacFarlane has bad luck with Fox.
Also, I mean, Family Guy's still on, right? Is it? I think though, like that last season on Hulu, it became like its own thing, and I watched like some of that, and I was like, that's something I need to finish along with my entire just giant list of other things I need to finish.
Is it a comedy though? I've never seen an episode of it. Is it a comedy?
Oh, it's Seth MacFarlane comedy. It's Star Trek. It's a case study in just letting someone that loves something do it without it actually being it.
And he's not doing the Seth MacFarlane thing of like, hey, remember that one time where this, that, and the other happened?
It's not the flashbacks, but it's still like, I mean,
good.
I just remember my early interpretations, like the two guys in the helm, right? The controlling the ship, because it's very much, it's like the Enterprise or whatever. It doesn't look quite like it. It's like if me and my uncle who I work with, like it's us as Star Trek characters, where everything is just that kind of like dick joke or mama joke or whatever you throw in there. Like it's almost the more natural. It's like if you took Star Trek, but like, look, Starfleet isn't professional. It's just jackasses doing like maintenance work. that would be that show. And I think Lower Decks, the Star Trek one of the Star Trek cartoons, the more comedy one, is kind of hitting on that same thing of just like this might be what people would actually react with.
But to bring it back around to the reboots and the remakes, I'm going to give you a quick list of like things that have been rebooted and remade, right? And stop me if any of them catch your testicles. Star Trek, The Amazing Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, Mad Max Fury Road, The Mummy, Evil Dead, which I want to see Evil Dead Rises.
Is Fury Road really? It's not a reboot, is it? I saw that on a list earlier too, and it really confused me because it didn't seem like a reboot.
Well, they didn't really go like full explanation into the Mad Max character, so it could be a reboot. It could be, a sequel.
Here's one: A Star Is Born. There's been like 4 or 5 remakes of that movie, but
I still haven't seen one.
But the reason why I like some movies being remade is because there was so much time that has passed that now we have the technology to make it a little more interesting, or we bring that into like today's era. But there's movies like The Great Gatsby where you're remaking it with a whole new cast, but it's still set in that original era, which is what, the 20s or something like that. Does it work? Does it not work? Or is it just all based? It's not of should movies or shows be remade or rebooted? Is it more of can it just be done? Can it be executed? And how many times, if it has been attempted, do we give it another chance? The Amazing Spider-Man was one example. The going back to the RoboCop 2015 was a flop, but we still love RoboCop.
But I do feel like the comparison to the original RoboCop to the new RoboCop, like the technology was there to make it a great movie, but for me the story was not there. Like I feel like the original RoboCop, you had the villains were
Big corporate America.
well, besides that, but the actual guys that killed RoboCop, like they were a big part of the story. And they were linked to the corporation, but they had, character development behind them. So you kind of got to know them. So when RoboCop became RoboCop and he had his prime directives and all that stuff, and like he went after all those guys, like it it meant something to him, but also to the audience that, oh, this guy's going to go after all these guys that, pretty much shot him up.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the new one came out, like, I feel like they fast forward through all that stuff. Like there was no connection. There was no meaning behind any of it. Like, I just felt like it was missing that soul of the character, like when he went after these guys, it didn't really feel like anything. Like it was just some regular people. I was like, okay, he's going down, and it was like a shootout scene, and it was cool and everything, but it just didn't have meat to it.
And on that point, if I remember correctly, didn't the original RoboCop wait like a good 30 minutes before you actually saw Peter Weller in said RoboCop suit? That's for today's attention span, people,
You
that's
had a couple
long
scenes,
time.
like, I do remember the scene where they prepped him and they were getting him ready, where you were just seeing everything through
POV.
RoboCop's like eyes, and they were doing all the tuning and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then they did the scene where he was walking through the police department, and they kept him kind of behind those
Like the foggy glass mirrors.
yeah, like the foggy
Or
glass. He was just walking by, but you just heard the feet sound like doo, 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 and his body moved.
We're not professional Foley artists.
but
Kunk.
but
Step.
but everybody in that movie was reacting like us because they were running to go see this guy. Like they wanted to go see, what this guy looked like.
What's all fuss about?
Yeah, like everything about it. And it was that scene for me where he was in that targeting room and he had the gun. And
Oh, yeah.
that gun. Oh, I have that gun, by the way.
Shut up. Do you really?
Oh, heck yeah. I bought it. I think it was one of my second or third year when I went to Comic-Con.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was the year that we had went together.
Yeah. I was
Point.
I lost my mind. I normally haggle when I get prices at Comic-Con.
Shut up and take my money. Full price.
Man, when that meme was real, shut up and take my money. Like, I didn't even think to try to bring the price down. But anyways,
Yeah.
just when he was shooting that gun and that which I believe is a modified Beretta, because the Beretta has like a bigger finger slot.
guard?
Yeah,
Trigger
like
guard?
yeah. But it was just the sound of that gun and just everybody
the 3
in
round
that
burst?
scene. Yeah, just like everybody's like, check out that fucking gun,
dude.
And it was that scene alone was
Did they say what caliber that was?
Oh no, I don't remember.
It wasn't like a fit. I'll look it up.
Because I don't remember what it was, but that was the thing that drew everybody to RoboCop. Like, it was almost like the Predator. Like, you didn't see the Predator for
That's
like a
another one.
while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For a while. And it built up so well. Like, you got, like little voice snippets of the Predator. Then you got to see, how he sees everything and
9
how he
millimeter.
mimicked and all that. But it was like done so well with RoboCop that when you finally saw him and then he got in his car and he went off to go do his thing, but just his aiming alone, I still remember when he shot that guy in the dick that had that girl hostage. And he was like, "Get away from me, man!" Like, he's like, "I'll do it," and you just saw his targeting little icon just go, and he shot.
No,
right
you know
between her
what?
Dress.
I remember the line. He said, "Dead or alive, scum. I'm gonna shoot your dick off."
Exactly.
And this is the thing too about reboots that I feel like you can't kind of redo it because to a degree, because you have such classic lines. And I feel like nowadays, like, I'll go back to the Predator, but you have dialogue that people still repeat to this day. RoboCop, you have, I'll buy that for $1. That was going around for like a while.
yeah.
Like that was just going around for a while. But it's one of those things, like, I don't know that aspect of a reboot or a remake. I don't know if you can capture that again.
But I think kind of veering off a little bit. But as far as catchphrases, I think that's a thing of like the '80s and early '90s. Like there was all
you
about
had all the
it was all about
taglines.
catchphrases.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think any new like Predator movie is gonna have somebody be like, "Darling, you son of a bitch."
But
he's a bunch of pencils.
all the Predator movies to this day still use that one line that you're one ugly motherfucker. Like,
yeah.
you see that.
You got to pay
in
homage,
there.
but going back to it though, we were originally talking about, it's like the storyline of having like a good storyline. The original Peter Weller RoboCop had that the 2015 didn't have. Like you said originally, if the 2015 felt like rushed with all those important parts. You know what I mean? The motivation.
It didn't feel like he had like a lot of like motivation to go get these guys. Like it just felt like, oh, this thing happened to him and now he's gonna go be RoboCop. Like I just felt like there was like a disconnect to his humanity side.
Yeah.
You know, not just the robot, but we need to go clean up, you know, these
Detroit.
streets,
Yeah.
the corruption and all that stuff. But I will say the new one, when you saw them pull away
Oh, dude, I wanted it. Yeah.
the suit,
That is disturbing.
the suit from his body,
His
like
actual organic part.
Yeah.
To show how much
you knew-
of him was left.
yeah, you knew in the original
Oh, dear
one,
Christ. Oh, Jesus Christ.
in the original RoboCop, you just know that he just became RoboCop, but you didn't get that like,
How much of him is actually left in there?
yeah, like you didn't get that visual of like
Visceral look.
he's part man, part machine, but you didn't visually get to see it. Like, yeah, he took off his helmet, you know, whatever.
but
But
what
in the
parts?
new one, they totally took his whole body apart,
Yeah.
and it was like all you
was-
saw was the lungs and his head,
And his stomach.
Jeez.
and he had a moment of freak
Oh, and
out.
his hand.
Yeah.
He had
looked
one
at
bio
hand.
hand.
Yeah.
Like the way he freaked out, he was just freaking out
Yeah.
when he saw all his limbs, and he was like, I was like, oh my god.
Oh, Christ. Oh, Jesus Christ.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
That's just me reenacting when I look at myself in the mirror naked after a shower.
You know, to answer your question, I mean, to go back to the question about reboots, I think part of it is just like, is it a movie that we could still show and or that you could show someone and you could watch or whatever? And I do look back at something like RoboCop. It's like, I feel like I could still watch RoboCop.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
And-
definitely.
Can I phrase it in a specific question?
Yeah.
I think it's more of not can it, yes or no, but does it have a potential to be remade, a potential to be rebooted? Now, I really pulled up an image of the 2014, I kept saying 15, RoboCop. Yeah, it's his head, his lungs. I thought his stomach was in there somewhere, and just his hand.
No, it's just his hand, but it was just
That is
that.
disturbing.
And
I remember seeing that. I got freaked out.
and he was hooked up to the machine, and they literally
Yeah.
pulled him apart, and he just
Like a
visually
Iron Man
saw what he
how
was.
he de-armors and then
A reverse Iron Man.
yeah.
Wow, that's wild.
But
I've always wanted to see that Iron Man where the
with
machines
this said-
malfunction,
With
pull them
this
apart.
said, with the reboot, do you guys have a old school classic movie that you guys feel like if it's one of your favorite movies? I think this may answer the question. Do you guys think your favorite classic movie could be rebooted, or should it just be left alone?
Man, great question. So there are some movies that are just like so deliciously perfect that I think you should leave them the hell alone, right? Maybe you could do things, and I know the recent Scream trilogy has coined a certain term. It's like a mix of sequel and
Yeah, requel.
requel.
Yeah.
where it's not necessarily a reboot. So you have some of the original cast, some of the legacy members, and it's a sequel, but it's kind of rebooted. I like that requels because you're kind of passing the torch. You're in that same universe. But to your question, as far as like standalone stuff, if something is so good, I think if it's just so good, just leave it the absolute hell alone. But if some stuff was like, that was kind of fun, and it has been a number of years, like for instance, I don't think that they should reboot Back to the Future.
Absolutely not.
No, it's one of those. I feel they should just leave it.
It's perfect right there.
They're never going to. So
We don't know that.
No, I think
I
it's,
never thought they were going to reboot all of the things that we just mentioned.
the
but they
creator
did.
producer locked that into
Okay, good.
the original contract that no one gets to remake, redo, or continue without his say so.
I like that.
But it's interesting. I'm sorry to interrupt. Actually, keep going. I'll get to my point next.
I still haven't answered your question though. I can't really think of a movie off the top of my head that I think they should reboot or remake.
There was an old back in the 80s, 90s when like Conan, Willow, like there was like that little era of like a lot of fantasy movies. There was a movie called Kroll
Yes, I
that
remember
fit into that. There was like a disappearing castle. The guy had like a glaive thing that he would throw. There was a cyclops that could see his own death. Really cool movie, and I think it still stands out. But like, it's obscure. Not a lot of people know about it, and I feel like it was a cool enough story that I wouldn't mind seeing that be rebooted.
That's
or
a great point.
But you know, the thing is a lot of these shows, a lot of these movies, there's been so many at this point that when you know, you look at something like Back to the Future and okay, time traveling, like at this point, if any movie gets made that's about time traveling, it's going to be instantly compared to Back to the Future. If any movie gets made about a cop that becomes a cyborg or something like that, it's going to be instantly compared to RoboCop. So I feel like these studios, and this is something I've dealt with, I've thought about for a while now. Like they're so caught. Like I think about the Karate Kid reboot with Jackie Chan and Will Smith's kid,
Jaden.
Yeah, that it was like so much not a Karate Kid movie. It could have been anything else, but had they made that movie, it would have instantly been compared to Karate Kid anyway, right? So like, I almost felt like they had to call it a Karate Kid reboot because if not, they would have people would have compared it to Karate Kid also, and then plus there's the money to be made.
Yeah, they won't hear it.
Yeah, with the nostalgia, you know, a reboot. But I don't know. It's an interesting thing because, like I said, so many movies have been made that is there any original idea that's not going to be compared to something and you might as well make it a reboot?
I have an angle on this.
Go for it.
Do you blame studios for sticking to sequels and reboots and requels and whatever
Yes.
when new IP gets shit on the way
Yes.
it does? Like the latest example being the Marvels, because that's
Yes and no.
even if it's based on source material in the comics, it's never been a movie before.
So yes and no, because I've had a lot of similar conversations with like quote unquote normal people that aren't nerds about stuff, and they say the same thing. They go, "Out!" It's always the same thing whenever there's a sequel or an adaptation or this is from a video game or whatever, and they go, "Oh my God, aren't there any original ideas that Hollywood could come up with?" And I look at them point blank in the face and I say, "Yes," and then I knock the popcorn out of their hand and I run for the door. But then I come back and I say, "Here's why." I go, "Have you seen XYZ movie that is a complete original movie?" And they go, "Well, no, it looks uninteresting. I don't know anything about it." I go, "Exactly. In the business of movie making, it's a gamble. And so they have to, you know, they have to invest and they have to gamble this. And what better chance to make the money they're putting into it by putting it into a known property in which you're going to guarantee get butts in the seats."
Yeah.
I rest my case.
Well, you'll create buzz about it. I mean, shows like ours. Someone announces a Marvel movie, we're going to get on here and talk about the characters and what they can do and the potentiality, the villains and all this kind of things. Someone announces some, you know, random movie that's not based on any source material. We can say, "Hey, that movie came out. The trailer looks awesome. The director's cool. The actors are cool." But there's not much hype anyone can give other than what the studio can put out. I'm not saying that doesn't exist. I mean, there's certainly some movies that,
The Conjuring.
yeah.
Yeah, there's some movies that like it's when they take that gamble of something that's like a not known property. I always call it like the lightning in a bottle, and then they go, "Ooh, they like that? Okay, great." Because there are a lot of movies that are amongst these great movies that are coming out. Like, what can you name some of the movies that came out alongside of Super Mario Brothers? Exactly, right? Throughout time, there's always been these little like kind of obscure, there's been a ton of obscure movies that just kind of like hit and miss. And maybe they did have big directors. Maybe they did have big actors. And some of those actors would be like, I kind of want to forget about that movie.
Well, a lot of things also nowadays is just coming out too quickly. Too many options. Some things are straight to streaming. Some are going to the theaters, and it's like I feel like if you wait a week, it's gone, or it's going to streaming already, and so you might as well wait. Or you know, like I think Cocaine Bear is already streaming. I feel like that just came out. I was like, I'm going to go see that in the theater. It's like, oh, it's on Peacock now, I think.
Stream it now, up your nose. But maybe to your question,
Which was, do you blame the studios?
But
it's kind of it's like that snake eating its tail.
I will say this, like with what Isaac said about, or what we were, been talking about, how certain studios, they go into their well of movie properties and things that they have, where there are people that are fans of these movies. So if they reboot it or make it into a series, they know they're going to have butts in the seats or it's going to generate money.
Yeah.
So when you have studios that try to do something new, and it flops and nobody, goes into the, the seats and watch these movies, they're like, well, that's why we go into our well. But my example is the Wachowski sisters.
Yeah.
I remember when Jupiter Ascending or whatever.
Yes.
Don't look at me.
Yeah, when Jupiter Ascending. Has anybody seen that movie anyway, by the way?
So much potential. I saw it.
And that's another one where
That's a great point. Yeah.
you have these established directors, who's made all these sci-fi movies, and then you have them come out with an original story, and nobody really goes to go watch this movie. And I went to go watch it. I was entertained, but it was, there was just something missing from the movie. Like, it didn't have all the ingredients that it needed.
So you would say it was the movie?
Yeah, it was more so the movie. Like,
Okay.
It had potential. There was a message in there.
So if they remade that one, you'd be happy to go see it?
Yes, if it's done right,
Yeah, needless to say, if it was done right, I mean, you wouldn't know. Here's the thing: you wouldn't know until you actually went to go see the movie.
yeah.
But if they were like, and they're rebooting or whatever, remaking Jupiter
Ascending.
Sure.
oh yeah, definitely, I would go watch it.
You know what I'm saying? So
I think part of the problem is just anything in this nerd realm, most movies in this nerd realm are always going to be expensive to make.
yeah,
And
you can
which
tell
means it's a
if they cut
gamble.
corners.
And so I don't know if I want to necessarily blame the studios because they have to make that smart decision of we're going to put, so much millions of dollars into it. We need to know people are going to go see it. And right now, at least nostalgia and reboots and superheroes and stuff is popular. Maybe we'll get to that point where people will go see a movie. But I mean, who was it recently brought up how, or people have been talking about how like that movie star is dead, right? There's no movie stars anymore. It's just these characters. And I almost feel like
Anthony, what's the name that plays the Falcon?
yeah,
Anthony
I think
Mackie?
he said that.
Yeah, he said
think-
there's no movie stars nowadays. Like, it's the characters that they play.
Yeah, and
that-
did it Tarantino.
but then the world was introduced to Pedro Pascal.
Yeah, that's a good example. Well, yeah, Pedro, I mean, yeah, you're right. That's a counter. I mean,
I would drop my microphone, but it's on a boom.
Hold on, I got something for you.
Thank you. God, where is that crowd? What the fuck?
because I mean
Fucking lay off
that
the
that is the
shrooms.
thing. Like back in the '80s, there were those actors that
Oh, yeah,
you
you had
put
the action
Schwarzenegger, you
stars.
put Willis, Stallone. You could put people would go see the movie, and then you could get more creative with what the show was.
Because Chris Pratt is also one that's like he's a fucking Hollywood star.
There's some controversy to him though. There's a lot of people that don't like him.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of people that.
We
Yeah,
can- we can get into that
But-
after the show.
Yeah.
but also to add to the studios and to add to these reboots thing and the fact that studios go back and like, oh, let's see what we have now. I feel like they don't try to go after original ideas anymore because like we just said that it's a gamble, so they'll go after a property like a comic book or like a novel. They dive into those things that already have like a fan base.
You know what though? There are moments in which I'll see a movie and then I per me being a nerd, I'll kind of deep dive on the cast and director, the writers, and then I'll sometimes discover, oh, it was actually based off of a book.
Oh yeah.
So, it wasn't really an original IP. But then you have moments in which a company like, the Marvel, or not a company, but like Disney Marvel, then obviously heavy-handed sets up a movie like The Marvels, in which they set up, was it Monica Rambeau or what's her daughter?
Yeah.
The Rambeau character, and they already have the original Captain Marvel, and then you have Miss Marvel, and you kind of know where it was gonna go. I mean, it was already announced a year or so ago, And then you're like, okay, the trailer's going to come out, and it comes out, and it is the most disliked trailer the MCU has ever experienced on YouTube. It's like over what, 4,000? Was it over 6? I know it's of the 1 million point like 2 views, it's 54%. The dislikes are like 54% of that.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's even. I think people are going to dislike it no matter what they showed.
So do you feel like they don't like that trailer because of they're just trolling to troll?
The trailer looked. I thought the trailer looked fun. I'm excited because this. I think the other week we brought up the idea that Disney with Disney Plus they have all these Marvel shows, but they haven't brought them together. And this is the first time we're seeing that. We have a character that was introduced in WandaVision, and we have obviously the character that was introduced in Miss Marvel coming into the bigger picture. Plus, we got Nick Fury returning. Like, this feels like the first MCU Marvel project that we've had in a long time because of that Nick Fury presence. And it's kind of cool that we're going to see these characters that were fleshed out fully in their series showing up in a movie, and I'm hoping we can kind of get right into it. But I hope they trust that people watched, or at least is going to watch on YouTube.
But as far as like Rambo's character, everyone's like, who's this? And then Captain Marvel, that movie wasn't really well received when it came out.
But even that, I think it wasn't well received because people had this animosity towards her, the actress, Brie Larson, because I think, she made some comment about women empowerment, and it made a certain group of our population just not like her. And I think, like Jermaine brought up, people didn't like that she was cocky, and then everyone in the MCU is cocky. So it's weird that her cockiness gets frowned upon.
And then also the third part of that is Miss Marvel. It was the least watched Marvel show. For whatever reason that may be, I don't know. But now you have those 3 in a feature film. And maybe it'll be those 3 characters' redemption. And maybe the movie's going to be... Again, we won't know until we actually watch it. And I'm still going to watch it,
And
God,
I think
that moth somehow survived.
I think that's the point, maybe, that I'm why I'm a little worked up about it is... disliking a trailer based off of, I didn't like these characters, but how many people watched Miss Marvel, right? Like, people didn't like Miss Marvel because they didn't watch it, or Monica Rambeau.
Good point.
I mean, Monica Rambeau, I thought they did a pretty good job with her character in WandaVision. So, and again, how many people watched WandaVision? It's like, I think the MCU has gotten to this point that it's so big, it's gotten bigger than what its fan base, I think, is willing to go along with. So not all these shows are going to be watched by everyone, but people are still going to have opinions about the shows and the characters. And there's going to be this unhappiness before even seeing it or before giving it a chance because it doesn't fit into what they think it should be or something like that.
I feel that, yeah.
So it's like, at the end of the day, like reviews should be based off of actually what you're seeing, not what you think something should be based off of whatever.
Or what you want.
Which leads a whole different discussion on trailers, which we'll get to another.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's like the Star Wars effect. Like, people had in their heads what they wanted to see from the characters, and then someone had the audacity to come in and write their own story and didn't even give the originals a chance.
Yeah.
And some of their criticism is warranted. Some of it wasn't. It was just automatic hate.
Yeah, and Miss Marvel, I liked that series. I thought it was fun. It was interesting to see a culture that's not normally represented in something that's targeted to such a broad audience. It was the typical like teen gets powers and doesn't know what to do with them, and then is like pushed into this world of fighting, some bit larger element or whatever. But they did touch on like this Marvel universe, like people are tracking people with powers and they're looking after her and stuff like that. It was a decent, fun little Disney Plus show, and it's cool that she's getting pushed into this larger main MCU project.
And she may be the first MCU acknowledged mutant.
Yes, yeah, exactly. That was the big surprise at the end. Spoiler alert. That was the big surprise at the end of MCU.
Yeah, it was. Well, Kamala, I don't know. You have some sort of mutation.
Yeah.
Little musical sting, but
yeah.
I mean, I will say as far as like the trailer. I will say as far as the trailer and as far as like having seen the shows WandaVision, Miss Marvel, and seeing the movie Captain Marvel, I feel like there's enough storyline within each individual character and the relation to one another, and the little thing where it seems like they're swapping places. Where yeah, you're right. I personally think it will be a fun movie. It's just it really blew me away and threw me off. Not that I wasn't ever going to see it, but that people didn't like it. I don't know if they just chalk it up to trolls or whatever, but I mean, it looks like it could be. It has a lot of potential and a lot of like aspects to it that it would be entertaining.
Yeah, exactly. I don't understand. I don't understand people.
And as far as like again in the whole realm of like remake and sequels and all of that, the big sequel that has been number 5, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Time. Is that
Dial of Destiny.
Excuse me, Dial of Destiny. That's the 5th one now.
Yeah, it's fun.
How do you feel about seeing an 80-plus-year-old character, not just actor, but character portraying that iconic role?
I mean, that's one where it's like, should they have just rebooted it?
Man,
I mean, there's always been talk about that. But I mean, there's still stories to tell, and it looks like a lot of this is going to be flashbacks because they're using Disney's amazing de-aging technology. The 4th one, the Crystal Skull, like did not do anything for me.
I was about to say,
and it did nothing for me. And so I want to be excited for this. The trailer looks good. But
Wasn't Shy supposed to take the mantle? But
that movie wasn't well received.
Yeah.
So that was back in 2008 when the Crystal Skull came out.
The unfortunately named Mutt.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys didn't like the vine swinging scene?
The monkeys and stuff like that? No.
I remember when they were first talking about the Crystal Skull that they were like, yeah, no, we're still going to use like practical effects. We're really going to keep it OG like that. And then the vine swinging scene popped on screen and I'm like, oh boy.
I feel like, along with this reboot conversation, and I guess the same thing can happen with sequels where, the original Indiana Jones maybe had some of these high action moments. And modern day filmmakers are like, okay, we can do that, but now we have CG, we have all this stuff, we can really make it high action, and you throw in monkeys swinging on, like you make it unrealistic. Where it's like back in the day when they couldn't do all that stuff, they might not have looked as cool, but it was grounded in realism because it's like, no, we got a raft on a.
It took 5 stuntmen's lives for us to practically get the whole vine swinging scene. Yeah, there was a decapitation and dismemberment here and there, but it was an awesome scene, wasn't it?
Yeah, and so that's my fear. Anytime they talk about a reboot or a modern sequel, is they're going to just be like, they're going to misunderstand maybe what people liked about the shows and lean heavily into, we're going to need this like huge action sequence that just doesn't fit or
they're going to force feed you certain things.
Yeah, and maybe it's me personally. Like a lot of times those long sequences like that, especially if there's a lot of CG, I check out.
Yeah.
Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, when he, I know, blasphemy.
Oh boy, shame. No.
The chase through Coruscant was just a complete checkout for me. And I know Lucas is probably so excited to we can do a car chase scene, but it's on Coruscant with flying cars and this and that. But it was like the music was off, and I had no reference to what a flying car feels like to fly, and I don't know. It was just those scenes I just check out.
My wife and I we had semi recently started watching Star Wars from Episode 1 and on, and that scene popped on, and I was like, wow, Lucas really had his heyday with all the CGI, and it didn't work.
Yeah, and even more modernly, Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi, same thing with the casino escape. I remember that was one of the big selling, when he was talking about, I'm so excited, we're going to bring in all these practical effects, all these aliens. But I'm saying it was a very long, them running on those weird alien horses.
It was the most hated scene.
Yeah, it was a stupid scene. I mean, the whole plot of them going to that casino to get the thing was stupid. But then to and the fact that they spent so much money and time to film, we're going to have them running on alien horses through a casino.
And I always say it, it's don't just do a thing to do a thing, do it because it informs a story, and it, especially in a movie. But of course I'm going to see Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Thank you. I feel, see, I don't want to set my expectations and then ruin it for myself, but I've seen the 2 trailers that have come out, and is an 80-year-old man going to be riding horseback throughout Times Square during iconic moments? Is it going to take me out of it? You know what I mean?
I don't know. I think maybe they're relying on the fact that the original viewers of that movie are feeling old. And starts, it's like,
Feeling are.
yeah, we're all going to relate to old Indy and what's his name, Gimli.
Oh yeah.
I can never remember his name.
Yeah, I can never remember his name either.
But yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like I miss the desert or whatever. It's like, yeah, that's how we're all that age where we all miss, like, I miss the bar.
But the big question
I miss
is,
staying up till 2 a.m.
is he still afraid of snakes?
Oh, probably.
I think Harrison is going to carry that movie. Personally,
Absolutely.
I think he has the charisma to
he
do it,
has
and I
to.
think he was just kind of pigeonholed on that last movie by a weird directions that it was going in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, just recently finished watching the series called Shrinking on
Heard about it.
Oh, I
Apple Plus.
saw a clip recently that made me laugh.
He's in that show, and oh my god,
Harrison Ford?
Yes, just his presence, his delivery, like he is that. He's not even the main character, but he is that show to me. Like, I want him to be my grandpa. Like, that's how just awesome he is. Like, when he's well written, like his natural charisma just kicks you in the fucking face.
You said Harrison Ford's charisma?
Yes.
Above a growl? Man, I'm Harrison Ford. I'm still afraid of snakes.
That's awesome.
Even though I think personally they could have gone the James Bond route with Indiana Jones and made it like a revolving door of main characters,
That would have been really cool.
through time, looking for ancient stuff.
And that's one of those things where it's like, because Harrison Ford had reprised the role throughout the years, it's like, well, Harrison's still alive, and he reprised the other one, so I guess we're gonna have to, keep on casting him as Indiana. But as far as like James Bond, it was like, it's sort of one of those things where, I forget how many James Bonds there's been. There's actors playing James Bond.
372.
Shut the fuck up.
Pretty much.
I looked it up. My God, that's a real number. And what's kind of fun in the last James Bond is they did kind of confirm that the moniker of 007 is exactly that, a moniker that can kind of be like passed along to a next person. Yeah. But that's James Bond. As far as Indiana Jones, there's only one Indy, man. Should they end it with him?
I still think they could have gone that route, but the fact that they didn't, just they were loyal to Harrison Ford and his character. So
Because Crystal Skull, they were trying to set up like a requel with Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah.
But then it fell flat on its butt. So I don't know.
And it's funny because how many other properties have tried to capitalize on, like, we want to be the next Indiana Jones? Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, obviously.
Oh, man.
And
Uncharted,
which they finally released a movie for.
Video game adaptations is another discussion.
Yeah.
Uncharted,
So-
Uncharted.
I think the last thing we wanted to talk about today was Godzilla and Kong. But before we do, I did see an interesting meme earlier today about reboots, surprisingly. And it was a question of, like, instead of rebooting successful movies that people can still enjoy, like, if there was any movies that bombed that maybe deserve a reboot and a second chance.
Yeah, you kind of brought it up earlier, and I think yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I
there's
think
a
it's
lot.
easier to do that.
Yeah. And
I do have a few guilty pleasure movies that I can name off, but yeah, there's a few movies.
that could be a good discussion for Instagram or another time. But
The Last Jedi.
it's fun to think about. The what?
This is The Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi. Yeah, let's just reboot episode 8. Because I agree. Like, God, I mean, or even the prequels of Star Wars, to me, great story, interesting, really things. But it's like, God, could we like execute those a little bit better? Maybe a little less mannequin.
Yeah,
and,
like bring everyone back. Like, same characters and everything. Like, I have nothing against Daisy Ridley or John Boyega. Like, I love that whole cast. Give them a better story.
but still have Luke drinking that sweet fucking milk from the nipple.
That will permanently be in my spank bank.
Showing your true colors.
But Godzilla
versus
and Kong.
Kong.
So, I mean, technically, your reboot, Godzilla and Kong. I'm liking the whole series so far, especially
love
the
the
last one,
Monsterverse.
Godzilla versus Kong.
It's
Like,
what was it, the fourth or fifth installment?
I think this will be the 5th in that MonsterVerse.
I
Wow.
believe so. I love it. I love the monster universe, the kaijus and all that stuff, whatever you want to say. But I am kind of disappointed, but also I don't know how I would have felt, but wasn't one of the movies supposed to end with like Pacific Rim characters or them going into the universe of Pacific Rim. Like I do remember reading something like that where
I mean, still a possibility.
they wanted to cross these universe.
Is it different companies?
Did Legendary come out with Pacific Rim? Were they
I
the
feel like so.
the studio behind that? Because
Yeah,
we can
Warner
look
Brothers
it up.
and Legendary have their MonsterVerse movie series, so
Yeah.
it's not that far fetched that they could still do that.
So one of the controversies with Godzilla versus Kong, which I think was the last one they did in the MonsterVerse, was people complained about the human side of the story, specifically like Millie Bobby Brown. I think people were saying like, oh, they just wanted a reason to put her in there because she's so hot because of Stranger Things.
Or that they killed off Bryan Cranston in the first 11 minutes of the movie.
Oh, that
In the previous one.
yeah. Which was shocking
Yeah.
because that was like a big star again from Breaking Bad, like
Huge. Just
yeah.
coming right off of that.
But I actually liked the human side of the story because they were like podcasters and like conspiracy. There was a whole conspiracy theory thing, and I love when a show or a movie takes kind of like they're aware of what the real world would react like. I mean, in today's world, there's a conspiracy theory about anything. So in a world of kaiju, like of course people are going to be like, this is a cover up or this or that. And it's kind of cool. I mean, I don't know, maybe people will find it controversial or maybe too on the nose, but
I continue to like the Godzilla and the Kong movies. It always feels like something's missing in those movies. They're not, I wouldn't say that they're perfect movies by any means. Obviously when we finally get to like the big monsters, it's fun to watch them. And yeah, you have to have the human storyline to kind of fill in the gap between those.
yeah, because I'm sure it's expensive as hell. If you want it to look good, it's expensive, which means they can't do a whole movie like that of the kaiju stuff.
Why not let them fight?
Let them fight.
I love oh boy, I don't remember his name, but he was in Batman Begins as Ra's al Ghul's like what would you call him? Like
It's like he pretended to be Ra's al Ghul.
yeah.
His
Like the fall
decoy,
man. Yeah, the decoy.
I could be murdering his name, but I think it was like Kent Watanabe or something like that.
Ken Watanabe.
Ken Watanabe. I loved him in Last Samurai, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah, so this Godzilla X Kong, like what was this? The subtitle was something like the New Empire. Because what was it? Kong was set up as like the king of that kaiju world, right?
Well, not necessarily kaiju world. They with this what's his name? Skarsgård. He was like a scientist that had the whole theory, and then had later confirmed it about the
Hollow Earth.
Hollow Earth thing. And
yes.
so the Hollow Earth actually was a gateway into the land of the monsters, in which there was a throne presented, and it looks like in this trailer, whatever big bad with blue glowing eyes. The camera pans away from the big bad, and he or she is sitting in the throne, and it's continuing to pan over a graveyard of bones, ending on possibly Godzilla and Kong's skull. I don't know.
Oh, their ancestors, or
That's a teaser for you.
Previous,
Yeah.
But
I mean, that's how teasers are supposed to be
it
done.
looks like it's another team up movie, not Kong versus Godzilla. It looks
Right.
like there's another threat out there where
Well,
they're gonna have to
Kong X,
tag
Godzilla
team
Kong.
back again.
World-ending threat so terrifying that neither could survive alone.
You got to hit it with
So-
some more oomph. It's got to go.
Also, the threat's
new
gonna be
empire.
mankind.
What's that?
Mankind's gonna destroy.
Oh man, it's another one of those movies.
Yeah.
Mankind's gonna go to the Hollow Earth.
It was us the whole time.
The answer was recycling the entire time.
Do you think movies like
I
this
don't know
will?
what that was.
Oh, they're gonna recycle everything and dump all the world's trash into
Hollow
Hollow
Earth.
Earth.
Monetize it.
It's just Disney.
It's just a pile of straws and it takes out the kaiju's in the nose.
Oh my god, I want to see that now. I want to see Godzilla versus a straw.
He gets a little sniffle and it's like, oh God, it's deep.
The ultimate fight.
Well, the
It's
straws
Godzilla
really were
versus
dangerous. Godzilla versus straws.
and Kong versus what was his name in Toy Story?
Snuggle Bear or something? Or
Spork.
a spork. Yeah, Sporky.
Sporky. Yeah, I'm trash.
Godzilla and Kong versus global warming.
Yeah. They beat the straw and then a plastic bag covers his head.
Oh, I need that in my life.
Do you think movies like this will always struggle with like a good portion of the audience is there to just to see Godzilla and Kong destroy stuff, and they're going to try. No, but there's a story about a hollow Earth and conspiracy and this and that, and it's like they gotta understand that a good portion of the audience is like, yeah, whatever. Can I see someone punch something?
Let them fight.
I feel like I feel like you have to write a story around it, around like really what's going on. So you're gonna have that human element. I will say the human element. I feel studios feel like it has to be there. Like when you look at the Predator franchise or the Alien franchise, like if you just have a movie about predators, like if it was just predators in there and nothing else, can that movie like exist and do well by itself? Because you don't really have a dialogue for the predators. I know they do have a specific language, but can you literally watch a movie about predators going?
It would literally have to be subtitled because hearing a predator speak English would completely throw me out.
So I'm gonna get you. You're the prey.
What did he say?
Ugly mother.
But they really get woke, and he's like, "What does it say? I can't quit you."
I'll take pleasure in getting you, boy.
But I used to be of the belief that movies back in the 80s and 90s could do gratuitous action where you didn't need a deep, storyline, a deep plot, where a character had to really learn. Yeah, it's there just because you kind of, it's sort of like the you have to have that in a story, but they're like, yeah, whatever, but look at this shit blow up, right? And you loved it. And Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Bruce Willis, R.I.P. his mind. But I thought that you couldn't do that anymore, and then the Dependables because they're old. Wow. But then the Expendables came out, and yeah, it was all of those old action stars, and then John Wick came out, and it showed, yeah, you can have gratuitous violence, gratuitous action, John Wick only spoke 340 words in John Wick 4, and you're just there for the action. Yes, they world built for those who gave a shit about it, but god dang, they just had some fucking action.
Yeah, John Wick is a great example of that. I would say those
and people
older
love dogs.
Yeah,
so when they killed the dog, everybody was like,
never kill the dog.
Get him.
Yeah, the first John Wick, absolutely. Like at the end of the day, it didn't even matter if they world built or not. Like I love the fact that they did. But going back to the older movies, though, I think part of it was they leaned so heavily on just the stereotypes. Like, any of those people could, it's like the bad guys, they were the Russians or the Muslims, or right? Like it was terrorists or the Russians.
Oh yeah, a lot of movies back in the day was with the Russians.
McClane.
Yeah, you didn't.
Who are you?
Which allowed them to completely skip over the villain development. And
he's not American. He's a bad guy. Kill him.
Pretty much. And you send in the current hot action star, and then you can blow stuff up. And there was almost that like arms race of like who can get the cooler jet. Like, oh, Schwarzenegger flew a Harrier or whatever and like fired a rocket into a building and stuff. When people talk about reboots, a lot of people will bring up the superheroes, because those are some of maybe the bigger reboots, and they seem to just pump them out. Like, oh, we've had all these Spider-Mans and all this and that. I almost like don't want to call those reboots, other than maybe what James Gunn is doing right now with DC, because that was something that was mid step, and he's just like, sweep the leg, we're doing something else.
And it's still crazy how that came about. But yeah, go ahead.
But for them to go from Tobey Maguire to Garfield Spider-Man or Batman, all the different Batmans. I guess they weren't reboots until Christian Bale. In the comic book world, it's like that's just another team taking over, right? It's a reimagining. It's a different thing, and it's
reimagining.
Like that,
that's the key word. I like the term reimagining or re-envisioning.
Yeah, that's the Christopher Nolan Batman.
Because remake sounds like a money grab, and to throw it to you, in the comic book world, there are new storyline or not new storylines. There are like reboots and remakes and
You
all
can
the
read
time.
a comic series like, let's say it's a 12 issue series or something like that, you know, where they're jumping from, you know, like a Batman or like a Nightwing, there's just jumping comics. There could be multiple artists in there. So let's say you pick up the graphic novel when it's all said and done. It's directed, written by these people. So you'll get that art style and you'll get into the next book and it's drawn by some totally different artist where everything just looks and feels different because it's another team that wrote this section of the story. And then it could jump back to the first artist again, you know, or it's another artist. So you're going to get different variations of.
well, it's that and again, feel free to shame me, but I have not read a lot of comics. I have read hardly any comics.
Go ahead.
He's poised over that button. But from what I understand, as far in the comic book round, well, more specifically the DC comics, you have DC the Golden Age, the Golden Era, and you have New 52. So there are those like which, you know, yes, in the movie realm, we don't have names for them.
Yeah.
It's like Batfleck.
Well,
And Batterson.
New 52
Whatever it is.
absolutely was a reboot. That's probably one of the few examples of like hardcore reboot of a comic book world. I don't but I think to go back what you were saying though is like we do have, I mean, we're way off.
Yeah.
We do, there are, you know, like a lot of times a team might get 6 issues or 6 months worth of comics or maybe a year. And they are generally given, even if it's a continuing story, right? Even if they're picking up Batman number 453 through 459 is this one team, and they could do some like their own little story. And you know, a lot of times it's not a huge reimagining, but they still might go somewhere completely different with it. Like I'll always remember there was a team that took over for Superman at one point that just like grounded him. Basically, like he lost his powers, or he didn't want to use his powers, and he like walked across the country for 6
I may be
and
completely-
like solved basic crimes for six issues, and it was awesome.
So like Smallville.
Did they kind of explore that in the Reign of Superman? No, am I completely off on that? The DC animated movie.
Oh, like not to my knowledge. Like it wasn't like it was the. They had the original animated Superman Doomsday movie, which was like a
Brutal, by the way.
which was a
Jesus.
reimagined version of the death of Superman. But then they decided to, you know, make the reign of Superman like, you know, kind of link it closer to the comics.
That's an interesting question, though. Sorry, should comic books ever be rebooted as like a written thing? I mean, I know I guess it would be insulting to the artists and the writers of the original ones, but I do look at the Death of Doomsday collection, all of it, and I love it. But comic books at that time were written in such a way, because I think the art couldn't be as detailed as maybe they wanted it to be. There was a lot of thought bubbles and a lot of almost explanations of what was happening. And I feel like even some of the older cartoons, and I know blasphemous, I'm going to badmouth Thundercats. The last time I saw a Thundercats clip, there was that
Where's
kind
the sword?
of.
Hold on.
I know.
You said you took it in the shower with you.
Be gentle,
He's pulling it out of his
because you
asshole.
tread on my dreams.
Be gentle. It's been a while. No, but I mean, like, I love those old shows, but sometimes you see a clip and it's like they're looking up at like a stalactite or something. It's like,
Oh no, like it's super
if
cheesy.
I can
like, all those
just throw
cartoons-
my sword and it will hit that stalactite, it will fall on the bad guy and we'll win. They very like they set it out, and so I think there's. I want to say, for whatever reason, it's popping in my head, and maybe I'm wrong because I haven't read The Death of Superman forever. But it's like I think Guy Gardner, one of the Green Lanterns, got beat up so bad that like he couldn't see because his face was so swollen, and the art showed that a little bit, but they still had like the thought bubble, like, oh my god, Guy Gardner can't see because his face is so swollen, and it's like it makes reading some of those older comics just like, oh man, like if they could rewrite The Death of Superman with modern art. And modern writing and like trusting the audience maybe a little bit more to understand what's going on.
A
in the
lot
art,
of people
like,
did
it'd
have
be kind of interesting.
issues with dialogue back in the day, especially since we're on the topic of the death of Superman. They did not like Superman's last words, of Lois Lane holding, that iconic scene, after the big scuffle with him and Doomsday, which was pages and pages of just them going at it that let them fight. But it was like Superman literally said, like, is he, referring to, like, is he dead? And there was a lot of people that didn't like the way that it was written, or more so his last words. Like, that
I kind of like
really,
that.
That was really his last words. But
To the end, he was making sure he got the job done.
Oh yeah,
that's Superman
I mean,
right there.
But which they touched on in the Snyder BVS, because his almost last lines were, "Save Martha." No.
He should have came out and said,
Fuck you, Lex.
I think we can wrap this episode up.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, that is yet another good place to end our deep dive episode about stuff that's all fucking nerdy. So
the Nerdverse.
make sure to go out and do some nerd stuff. I'm gonna check out we're gonna check out the last episode of The Mandalorian today, right after this show. Thank you, Jack Black.
very excited.
Yes.
This weekend,
yes.
I'm gonna. I already got my tickets. I'm gonna see Evil Dead Rises. That's gonna be fun. But hey, check us out on the Hype Attack on Instagram, where we cover some of the things that we talked about and a lot of the things that we didn't talk about. Doug,
Yeah, same thing as last week. Please keep the conversation going with everybody, and
Nerd out.
Don't let up. Nerd out, everybody.
yeah, man. And if there's something that you wanted us to talk about, something we may have missed, hit us up in the DMs, or as Rudy said last time, comment. He'll read every single thing that you put out there. So make sure to check us out next week, the same hype time, same hype channel.
Hype attack.
Bye, guys.